time for Nerdgasm.
Hey, what's up guys? Jerry here, aka Barnacules, and today we're going to talk about the subject of video lighting. Now, a lot of you guys ask me questions on my social network all the time about what type of camera I use when shooting my YouTube videos, or what type of microphone I'm using with my camera to get that audio that you're hearing right now. But very, very rarely do I get any questions about the actual lighting that I use when shooting my videos. And to be honest, I'm surprised by that, since cameras fundamentally work on the principle of light entering in through the lens and being exposed to the sensor. Lighting is of critical importance, but honestly, it's an easy mistake to make, and one that I've made myself several times. Now today we're gonna be reviewing a few products from a company called Aperture. No relation. Honestly, it's not even spelled the same. Now they've sent me over 2 of their LED light panels. Now they've sent one professional grade light panel here called the Lightstorm, and another one here called the Ameren that's a little bit more of a consumer entry level panel. But both of them work amazing, and I found that they complement each other perfectly, especially when you're doing a lighting configuration that involves a fill light and a key light. All right guys, well let's take these things out of the box and see how they perform. Guys, I'm using the lights right now, they're not in the box. Alright guys, before I start with the review of these lighting panels, I want to talk a little bit about my lighting configuration that I'm using here in the Nerd Cave. Now, I'm using a pretty standard lighting setup that involves having a key light, which is your primary and usually most powerful color accurate light that you have, that shines at your face and creates contrast and basically shows off the features of the subject that you're pointing at. And then my other light that I use off to the other side, both at approximately the same angles and height, is actually my fill light. And for that I'm using the Ameren light, which is slightly less powerful, but it allows me to cancel out the shadows across my face and just give overall good contrast. Now behind me, I'm actually using a backlight. Now there's a ton of different options for your backlighting, but for me I'm actually using these lighting rigs that I built on the ceiling that are using a CFL bulb, and they project light basically straight down and behind me moving forward to kind of give me a sharp edge when you're looking at me. Now, I am by no means a lighting expert. You guys will probably be able to figure that out by watching any number of other videos and being like, why is their lighting so much better? This is a learning thing for me completely, but if you guys go back and watch my older videos like a year or 2 ago, you'll see that my lighting game has really improved. Now, another really cool thing about using an LED-based lighting source is LEDs inherently have a very, very stable color accuracy, otherwise known as a CRI. Now, both of these panels are rated at a 95 plus CRI, which means they have incredibly accurate color to the temperature that they're advertising, which in this case, both panels are capable of 5500, but you'll see that the Ameren panel actually has some flexibility, and you can dynamically change the color temperature depending on what type of scene you're shooting and what type of like dramatic effect you want with the lighting. For all intensive purposes, the way I shoot here, I use 5500K lighting as much as humanly possible. I find that the CFL lights do deviate from that a little bit, and they don't have the same accuracy as LED lighting, but my primary LED lighting is all 5500K. Alright, we're going to start off the review with the big daddy right here. This is the Aperture Lightstorm. This is their biggest light that they make to date, and this is the LS1S model. There's a couple of different models, and this sucker is a light cannon. It puts out 30,000 lux at half a meter, which is a hell of a lot of light. I mean, if you want to translate it, it's roughly a little over 2,000 lumens of light that this thing can produce. In other words, don't look directly at it, or you're basically just going to have a pattern of LEDs burned into your retina all day. So make sure that you properly diffuse the light if you're using it at that level. Also, one of the really cool features of this light is that it has dense packed LEDs. This actually has the highest density of LEDs in proximity of each other of any panel that I've ever seen. And I think that that's actually really cool, and it attributes to it having such a small footprint and being so powerful. Now, the Lightstorm comes with integrated barn doors that serve 2 purposes. They actually close over the LED panel to protect the LEDs when you're transporting the light, and it also opens up to provide a reflective surface and a way for you to basically cancel out light bleeding out the edges of the subject that you want to light. They also include a package of tracing paper that you can see right here that you can actually clip onto the barn doors to basically control how diffused the light is, depending on if you want a softer light or a harsher light. But it all depends on what you want to do, and it's very versatile. Now, the construction of the Lightstorm light is actually amazing. The back of it is a solid metal heatsink, and you can see it has one plug to plug the control box into it. And I think it's cool that they did the control box separate from the unit, because one, you can actually operate the control box being away from the light, and you take all of that weight off the top of your light stand, which I think is a really slick move. Now, the control box, which you can see here, and again, I'm using both lights as I'm reviewing, and that's why you don't see me sitting at a table with the lights in front of me. I'm actually using them for this video. You can see on the control box that it's actually a very, very sturdy, well-built control box. The first thing that I would think is this is professional grade equipment that you use like on a set of producing a movie or something like that. And of course, I would expect that because the price point of this light is around $700 at this time. And you might think, holy crap, that's really expensive. But you have to keep in mind that the lighting is every bit as important as the camera, and the control of that lighting, accuracy of that lighting, is really, really important to your video production. Every bit as important as the camera you're using. Now, you can see on the control box, you actually have a knob that can adjust the brightness of the light up and down. And you also have an indicator here that says what percentage of the light power you're actually using. It also has a channel and group ID that you can change on this to change how it responds to the remote control. And I'm going to show you that right now. See this little guy? This is the Aperture remote control. This is actually my favorite part about both of these lighting panels, is that you can control them completely remotely. I can turn one panel off, I can turn the other panel off, I can turn them both on, I can adjust the intensity of each light panel, and I have 3 different channels and 4 different groups on this remote, so I can actually control a hell of a lot of lights from one location with this. And it's an RF type remote, so it doesn't have to be line of sight. You can put it behind your back, you can have it in your pocket, you can have it at a frame while you're shooting. And so it gives you a lot of control, especially if you're like me sitting in front of the camera and you're a one-man production. You can actually sit here and control the lighting level exactly how you want. Like here, I'll turn one light up. That's like the sun. Woo! Man. But it gives you the flexibility to actually sit where you're going to be on camera and adjust all the lighting perfectly to your preference without having to move. And I think that that is probably my favorite feature of these lights, is that you don't have to get up and adjust the lights. That's what I had to do before. I'd get up, adjust the lights, adjust the intensity, sit back down, check my monitor, do it again, do it again, do it again until I got it right. Now I can do it all while sitting here looking at the camera. And you'll notice it also has 2 ports on the front here for something called DMX. No, I'm not talking about the rap artist. I'm talking about the network protocol that's used to basically connect all these lights up to a light board in a professional studio setting so that you can accurately adjust all the lights from a light control room. Well, for my purposes, I'm probably never going to use the DMX protocol, but the fact that it's there is actually just another sign that this is a professional grade piece of equipment. Now, also on the back, you can see right now it's set up for a V-mount style battery pack, but you can also get it with an Anton Bauer type battery pack. I believe you can get a Sony type battery pack. You can get it in a lot of different configurations so that if you already have a set of batteries that you're using in your production, chances are you can get a model of this that your batteries are compatible with. Because who wants to buy another set of batteries and another set of chargers if you're using a whole bunch of equipment that already uses those batteries? Now, included with the Lightstorm light, you basically get the light itself, the bracket for attaching it to your light stand. It does not come with a light stand. If you guys want to find a cheap, inexpensive light stand like the ones I'm using, I have a link in the video description, along with a link to buy either of these lights if you're interested. And it comes with the control box that you see right here, and it comes with an AC adapter and a pretty sizable power adapter that looks like it could power a high-end laptop. But everything you need to get the light up and going, but it does not come with a battery. So just take note of that. If you're going to buy this and you're going to be using it at a remote location, you will have to purchase a battery. Luckily for me, all of my shooting I do is indoors or in a studio setting, so I always have access to an outlet. Now, another perk of having a control box like this is it looks like you have probably about 5 or 6 feet of cable. So you can actually hang it from the strap that comes with it on the light stand facing you so you can see the intensity of the light as you're adjusting it. That way, if you get the lighting dialed in just right, you can always use the remote to get it back to that number while you're still sitting in front of the camera, and I think that's pretty cool. Another interesting thing about these light panels, and I've owned LED light panels before, is they come with spare LEDs. So if you happen to drop your light on the floor, damage one of the LEDs, or one of the LEDs, God forbid, has some kind of defect and burns out, you have replacements. Now the downside, of course, is I had to go to their webpage and they have instructions on how to install the new LEDs. But it does require actually taking the light apart and soldering the new LEDs in place. So if you're not comfortable using a soldering iron, these probably aren't going to do you much good. But chances are, if your light gets damaged and it's out of warranty and you need to fix it, it's probably cheaper to pay somebody that does know how to use a soldering iron to fix it rather than scrapping it and buying another one. So I do think that's a nice touch. Now guys, I realize that a $700 price point, this is a very expensive light, but if you go do your research, you're gonna find out that most 1 foot by 1 foot LED panels out there don't have nearly the same light output as this thing does, or they don't have the same color accuracy, or some people will complain that they suffer from flicker. These are both flicker-free panels that I'm using, and that is critically important because if you get an LED panel that has flicker and you're shooting videos, you're gonna notice it and you can't fix it in post. So make sure if you get lighting panels that they are guaranteed flicker-free. Also, you're spending a lot of money, but realize that's your key light. That's going to be your primary light that you want to have the most granular control over, and you want to have the highest light color accuracy, and you want to have that nice kind of soft fall off at the edge of the lights. A lot of LED panels, like this one in particular, this is my F&V little light panel that I was using before. This little guy right here has had a couple of problems. One, a couple of the LEDs like to flicker and cause some problems. And I've used these in videos before, and they're not horrible, but they're not great either. The build quality isn't that great on them, but they're not that powerful at all. And I really like that both of these lights are actually infinitely more powerful than this little guy, because honestly, these are pretty expensive by themselves. Now, another thing to note is you are getting a panel that has an insane amount of light output. So if you're shooting things like cars and stuff like that in a closed-in dark area and you need to get the light far enough away from the subject that you can get everything in frame, it's good to have a hugely powerful light. If you have one of the weaker lights, the further you get it from the subject, the more dim the light's going to be. I mean, that's just science, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So you want your primary light to be really powerful. Your fill light doesn't have to be as powerful, so that's why these work in concert really, really well. All right, guys, we're gonna shift gears over to the other light I have, which is the more consumer grade light from Aperture. This is the Ameren, specifically the HR672C. I don't know where they get these model numbers from, but this is actually more of a consumer grade light that you can pick up for around $300. And what makes this guy really, really cool is that it comes with a diffuser panel that slides right into the unit, so you don't have to fuss with taking paper or gels and actually like connecting them to the barn doors. You just slide the panel in place if you want diffused light. You take it out if you don't, if you want more direct and sharp light. Another thing I really like about the panel is it comes with the batteries and the AC adapter. So this thing is ready to use out of the box in the field, which is fantastic. And it uses 2 Sony style batteries, which is great. So you don't have to buy proprietary batteries for it. It uses the Sony style battery packs, and it comes with 2 of them in the box. Now with those 2 lights varying depending on how much power you have the light adjusted to, on the batteries I was able to get about 1 to 2 hours worth of light out of it when I was shooting down in the Nerd Cave garage when I didn't have an outlet available. And I actually thought that that was pretty good because honestly I don't even get an hour out of the F&V lights that I was using with the single battery pack. But it's still very, very sufficient as a fill light, and if you had 2 of these you could easily use them in a key and fill light scenario if you're filming something like I am now where it's just a direct subject. But if you had to film some larger things like cars and stuff and get the lights away from them, you're definitely going to want to go more towards a more powerful light like the Lightstorm. Now, another sweet feature of this panel on the back, and this actually kind of blew me away, is you can change the color temperature of the light dynamically. You literally turn a knob on the back of the unit, and it actually tells you on the LED readout what the color temperature of the light is so that you can match your camera up to the scene. And I think that that is fantastic. You're not just fiddling with it trying to get the color right. You can pick a specific color and you can keep getting back to that color if you need to move the light or change the set or the mood. And I think that's cool. And it does it by switching between 2 lights, a 3200K and a 5500K LED. Now the array has both LEDs side by side, and it basically changes the power level to each of them to produce that color of light. I think it's pretty ingenious. Now, just like with the Lightstorm, it actually comes with a bag of replacement LEDs, both the 3200K and the 5500K LEDs, which are both labeled in the bag. But again, you have to take the light apart, and you do have to have some soldering skills to install them. So just be aware of that. It's not as easy as like a light bright where you just pluck out the peg and put another one in its place. It actually does take a little bit of electrical knowledge. But again, it's still better than throwing the light away and buying a new one, just because one one LED decided to burn out or start flickering. Now, just like the Lightstorm, the Ameren actually uses the remote control, and it's the exact same remote control. So this remote control works for controlling both of these lights, and that's fantastic. So if you buy a bunch of the less powerful Ameren lights because you're in the field and you just need something that runs off battery and has the batteries in the box, hey, you can use this with it. If you have your Lightstorm light, you can actually use it also, and you set each one of them to a different group and channel basically on this little remote, and then you can control them. And I think that's actually still my favorite feature about all these lights. Now granted, it's lights. My favorite feature is that, hey, it makes me look good on camera. Well, I mean, as good as I can look, I guess. But realistically, being able to sit in front of the camera and control the intensity of my lights and everything like that while I'm sitting here looking at a monitor under the lens, that's priceless. Now, of course, since this is a consumer grade panel, it's got more of a plasticky feel to it than the Lightstorm. The Lightstorm seems like it's all metal construction, whereas this is plastic construction, but it's still very sturdy, and it comes with an extra little plastic adapter so you can adjust the angle on top of your light stand. And it also has like 3 separate mounting points on the light where you can basically screw the light stand into it. So if you want it lengthwise or widthwise, you can actually put it on the light stand in a lot of different configurations. Now, if you check the links in the video description, this light actually comes in a couple different configurations depending on what you're using it for. Now, this particular model, the HR672C, actually has the multiple color temperatures where you can dial it in, but that does come at a cost. Because it has 2 different types of LEDs that are different colors, to achieve those, the brightness level at full 5500K light is much lower than a panel that just has 5500K LEDs in it. Now, they do sell that panel. On the side here, it's actually listed as model number. Let's see here, the HR672S. Now that one is a 5500K only panel and is capable of 18,800 lux, which is much more bright than the 6620 that this light is able to produce. Also keep in mind that they make a couple of different lights that have different beam angles. Now this one has a 75-degree beam angle, which is actually quite a bit wider than the brighter 25-degree beam angle. So make sure that you know what you're shooting and you do a little bit of research. If you're lighting a subject very close up, you can actually use a very narrow beam of light and it's not going to make a difference. But if you're lighting an entire scene like I am right here, you're actually going to want a wider beam on your lights. You're not going to want it to be like a spotlight. You're going to want it to be more like an omnidirectional light. Now again, both the consumer grade Ameren panel and the Lightstorm panel both have a 95 plus CRI rating because of the LEDs, which means you're going to get a color accuracy that's acceptable. So when you dial in the white balance on your camera to 5500K, you're going to not need to do any color correcting in post. Unless you want to do color correcting in post, then God forbid I tell you what to do with your video. But I'm not going to color correct it. So guys, I've been using both of these lights here for a couple of weeks now, and I am incredibly impressed with them. Both lights have shown that they have no flicker. I've had no problems with any of the LEDs. They've always worked exactly as advertised. The remote control works flawlessly. I've never had it just stop responding to the remote control or have to do the whole "can you hear me now, can you hear me now" thing like you do with the cell phones. And they've both worked fantastically. So if you guys are looking for a lighting setup to complement your camera, this is a really, really good way to go. And even if you go with the Ameren for both your key and your fill light, depending on your lighting situation, it's going to be more than adequate. But if you want solar flare level lighting that allows you to turn the ISO down to nothing on your camera and get the absolute best video quality, invest a little more and get these bright lights, and just be prepared to wear sunglasses or squint a lot when you're shooting the video. But it's going to turn out badass. So if you guys have any questions about the Lightstorm or the Ameren line of lighting panels, go ahead and ask me down below in the comments, or you can come over and tweet me. I am at Barnacules over on the Twitter. And I want to urge every single one of you guys to do your research, whether you buy Aperture lights or whether you buy some other lighting brand. Please do your research and look at the different lighting setups that people use, because I will tell you right now, I shoot on a Canon 5D Mark III, which is a phenomenal camera. A lot of people in the industry would say that it's probably one of the best video sensors that you can get in a camera. At least it used to be. And even though I'm shooting with this amazing camera, if you go back and look at my old videos from a year or two ago, the lighting sucked, therefore the video sucked. So if you're gonna invest in a good camera, you should absolutely invest in good lighting. Otherwise, you're just throwing your money away. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed my review of the Aperture line of lights that they sent me. I really love these. I'm actually gonna contact them and see if I can get a couple more lights to help out with some of the other projects that I'm using, because I'm very, very impressed with them. I really am. And the F&V lights that I had, those things served me for a while, but to be honest, they don't have the greatest build quality, and they have presented some problems with flicker, which is something you don't even wanna mess with if you don't have to. All right, guys, well, this has been a lot of fun. It's time to shoot some more videos now that I actually have a decent lighting setup, so time to get back to it. All right, guys, till next time. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please take a moment and subscribe to my channel. It helps me a lot. Also, come over to Twitter. I'm at Barnacules. I'm a real social guy. Also, if you have a couple of minutes, check out some of these many other videos. I made them myself.